Hey everybody, welcome to my very basic guide. In this episode, we'll be learning about how time is a valuable thing and how you can cause it to fly by when you watch the pendulum swing. Unlocking the mechanisms of a well-oiled machine and understanding your innate connection to the order of things are key ingredients to mastering the secrets of time itself, and is the forte of the Clockwork Soul, a Sorcerer's Origin introduced in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This timely sorcerer subclass is all about reducing the odds and minimizing the risks that you have to take in a world ruled by dice. The Clockwork Soul offers a player the chance to be the master of their own fate, giving the sorcerer many ways to reduce the variance of abilities and actions, injecting a sense of stability and order in the way events unfold. In many ways, you can consider the Clockwork Soul as the antithesis of the wild magic sorcerer, who revels in chaos and chance. The Clockwork Sorcerer is for players who enjoy having a wide variety of options at their disposal, with a heavier emphasis on helping out the rest of the team with really powerful utility in both their subclass features and expanded spell list. And speaking of expanded spell lists, the first Sorcerer's Origin feature arrives right out of the gates of level 1. The Clockwork Soul Origin gives us some fancy new subclass features, with the first one coming in the form of Clockwork Magic. This subclass feature is a free expansion of the Sorcerer's spell options once you reach certain level thresholds. Clockwork Magic will give you access to more spells that do not count against your spell limit, which is really nice since limited spells have always been a traditional weakness of the Sorcerer class. Another neat trick that the Clockwork Magic feature provides is the ability to swap out any of their default Clockwork spells whenever you gain a Sorcerer level. However, the new spells must be from the Abjuration or Transmutation schools of magic, but they can come from the Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard spell list, which is quite the buffet of choices that allows for some serious customization in what type of clock-wielding magician you want to be. The first set of spells that the Clockwork Magic feature provides starts off at level 1, with the spell Alarm and Protection from Evil and Good. Unfortunately, the Sorcerer does not get the ritual casting feature naturally, which means that the Alarm spell is probably not going to be worth casting, since it will eat up your spell slots for a job that a regular adventurer could just do on their free time. But I do appreciate having the Alarm spell in a thematic sense, since it's a very, clock-like ability. Protection from Evil and Good, on the other hand, is a fairly decent first level spell to get, buffing yourself or another party member against the attacks and spells of a wide variety of monsters is always really handy, even in the later levels. Moving on to the third level, the Clockwork Sorcerer gains access to the second level spells Aid and Lesser Restoration. Both of these classic cleric spells are really good, with the Aid spell potentially being a nice pre-battle buff to help sustain your buddies through tough fights or as an emergency band-aid for desperate situations. Lesser Restoration is also another iconic support-oriented spell that you don't normally see on a sorcerer. Being able to end a debilitating condition on either yourself or a friend in need is very useful in a pinch and can help lessen the impact of a particularly nasty failed saving throw. Arriving at the 5th level, 2 free 3rd level spells in the form of Dispel Magic and Protection from Energy are added to your repertoire. Dispel Magic can be sometimes situational, but is generally considered very good when the need arises, and the fact that Clockwork Magic allows you to always have it prepared without it counting against your sorcerer spell limit makes it a very dynamic tool to have in your back pocket at all times. Likewise, Protection from Energy is very good in the right situations. If you know what kinds of enemies you will be facing off against, then it can turn challenging situations into cakewalks. Going all the way to the 7th level, you receive the 4th level spells Freedom of Movement and Summon Construct. Freedom of Movement is somewhat niche in its usefulness, but getting bogged down in difficult terrain, underwater zones, and grapples happen regularly enough. Also, getting pseudo-immunity to spells that causes paralysis or the restrained condition makes Freedom of Movement a really handy spell that counters potentially frustrating situations while also not costing you concentration to maintain. Summon Construct is one of the newer conjuration spells added in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and it's a pretty nice summoning spell, giving you a construct spirit that can be made from clay, metal, or stone, with each material giving your summon a different ability, allowing the Clockwork Soul to have a relatively beefy companion to defend themselves with for a 1-hour duration, which is nice, though somewhat expensive as it requires a 400 gold piece material component and also costs concentration to maintain. Finally, reaching the final tier of free spells at level 9, the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer obtains the 5th level spells Greater Restoration and Wall of Force. Greater Restoration is potentially life-saving, as the conditions and curses that it cures are usually very, very bad to the person that it afflicts. It might not be as universally useful as Lesser Restoration, but having it on standby as a sorcerer is a really nice convenience to have, and one that will make your party thank you if they ever get petrified or are bound to a cursed magical item, which happens to adventurers more often than you would think. Wall of Force as the final free spell is honestly pretty great, and it's usually a wizard exclusive one. Wall of Force gives the sorcerer an incredibly versatile battlefield control spell, allowing the Clockwork Soul to guard an exposed flank, protect your party from big area effect spells, or to divide enemy lines, allowing your party to destroy your foes piecemeal. Also, as a fun visual side note, you get to have some special effects whenever you cast any of your sorcerer spells, such as your eyes turning into spinning clock hands or having floating equations in geometric shapes popping off your body like a meme. These manifestations of order do not actually do anything mechanically, but they're there for flavor and personal enjoyment, as a way of indicating that your sorceress magic comes from within yourself. But moving away from the Clockwork magic that focuses on the arcane side of the Clockwork Soul, we still have yet to go over the other subclass features that you unlock early on at level 1, such as the subclass feature Restore Balance. This ability emphasizes the orderliness of the Clockwork Soul, giving the Sorcerer the ability to use their reaction to prevent advantage or disadvantage on any d20 roll that you can see within 60 feet of yourself. Restore Balance essentially neutralizes any reroll of a d20 and forces any creature to roll normally. You can only use the Restore Balance feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and can only recharge your usages on a long rest. This ability can be quite powerful as it allows the Clockwork Sorcerer to pick and choose when to cancel out advantages and disadvantages to the benefits of your allies. It is a quick and easy solution to remove advantage on an enemy's devastating attack roll or for when your teammate is suffering from disadvantage at a crucial moment, such as a saving throw against a lethal spell. Restore Balance really helps the Sorcerer stack things more in the party's favor over time by disabling negatives for your allies and bonuses for your opponents, making it a really nifty feature. Now finally moving beyond the starter features, we receive the next subclass ability at level 6, where you become a Bastion of Law. Sometimes the best way to defeat your foes is simply to outlast them, and Bastion of Law is a feature that very effectively puts this strategy on display, granting a special magical absorption shield that reduces damage to either yourself or another person that is within 30 feet of you. The strength of the damage reduction shield is represented by a number of d8s equal to the number of sorcery points that you expend with your action, with the maximum limit being 5 sorcery points. Every time the creature that is protected by Bastion of Law takes damage, they can choose to expend any number of their d8 dice that they have on them, roll them, and then subtract the damage taken by the total amount rolled from their d8s. The Bastion of Law shield can only be placed on one person at any given time, and it will last until you finish a long rest or if you use this feature again. The incredible duration does really benefit Bastion of Law as a long-enduring damage reduction shield that can really help protect some of your squishier friends, especially since it has the potential of completely negating damage, which can allow casters to save themselves from having to take concentration checks when they get hit. And also Bastion of Law converting a single sorcery point into 1d8 of damage reduction is a pretty efficient trade-off for an ability that lasts until your long rest. Bastion of Law is basically a better version of temporary hit points, with the added benefit of being able to stack on top of temporary HP as well, making it a really robust defensive buff that is both economical and durable. Getting all the way to level 14, your brain has absorbed enough cosmic clock juice to cause your mind to enter into a state of mathematical nirvana, also known as the trance of order. You enter this state of being by using your bonus action, which then causes all attack rolls made against you to lose any advantage it may have had, while also allowing the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer to always roll a minimum of 10 on their d20 rolls for any ability check, saving throw, or attack rolls that you make while under the effect of Trance of Order, which lasts for a 1-minute duration. You can only use this feature once per long rest unless you expend 5 sorcery points to instantly recharge it. Trance of Order is a fairly interesting ability that has some unique applications associated with it, with the most common one being that if you're ever in a terrible spot where an enemy has a ton of attack rolls that are being bolstered by advantage coming right at you, then Trance of Order can easily save your bacon in that situation. But the other part of this feature is a little bit more nuanced in the sense that having a minimum floor to all of your d20 rolls in case you roll very poorly is in theory very good. However, a result of 10 is still not that great, especially for a Sorcerer, and may not give you the bump that you need to transform a failure to a success. It will absolutely benefit the Sorcerer for their attack rolls, where they will enjoy a healthy bonus when casting cantrips and lower level spells that relies more on your spell attack modifiers. But later on, a lot of the more powerful spells tend to force enemies to make saving throws against your spell save DC, which of course does not benefit at all from Trance of Order. Another potential pitfall for the 14th level feature is the fact that the Sorcerer does not really get access to any sort of extra skill proficiencies, which makes the absolute minimum roll of 10 somewhat inconsequential to many situations that requires ability checks. The Sorcerer class does get proficiency to their Constitution saving throws, which is very nice for maintaining concentration on your spells when you get hit, but other common saving throw types such as Wisdom or Dexterity saving throws will probably not benefit that much from Trance of Order when you are stacked against something truly dangerous, such as an enemy spellcaster with a high spell save DC. However, Trance of Order is still not something to completely write off, since it does have utility against giant hordes of enemies, monsters, or traps with lower save DCs to overcome, and it can also be utilized outside of combat scenarios where you can make use of your charisma score much more frequently, with things like persuasion and deception checks, where the minimum roll of 10 can greatly increase your chances of successfully socializing. Finally, at level 18, you reach the pinnacle of being best friends with clocks in both body and soul, with the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer now being able to summon the spirits of robotic clock people to do your bidding with the feature Clockwork Cavalcade. This subclass capstone feature is activated through an action where you spawn spirits in a 30-foot cube that radiates outwards from your body. These clock spirits have 3 effects. The first of the 3 is to restore 100 hit points, divided in any way that you want, to creatures that are within your 30-foot cube. This is quite nice as it essentially is an AoE lay on hands that has decent range. Having a pool of 100 hit points is not necessarily a ton at level 18, but the power to calculate and then divide precisely where to allocate your healing resources can be quite good, as it allows the Sorcerer to prioritize the ones that are most in need, and for an entire team to bounce back up from the brink of a party wipe. The second effect is a weirder one, with the clock spirits instantly repairing any damaged objects that are entirely within the cube. This is an ability that is quite flavorful for the Clockwork Soul, and also one that is incredibly niche, but you can probably imagine a campaign scenario where you have some sort of forgotten ancient structure that you use to contain some sort of clue that has been lost to time, and using the Clockwork Cavalcade, you get to repair the damaged structure back to its former glory and maybe unlocking lost secrets or perhaps some sort of ancient history that no one remembers. So yeah, it is a cool effect, but one that is heavily dependent on the campaign setting actually having something interesting to repair in your midst. The third and last effect of Clockwork Cavalcade is probably the strongest part, which allows the Sorcerer to end every spell of 6th level or lower on all creatures and objects of the Sorcerer's choice within the 30-foot cube. This is pretty great as it effectively is an area effect 6th level dispel magic ability, which gives the Clockwork Soul a potent tool to deal with enemies that are using spells to buff themselves up in combat, such as haste or fly, while allowing the buffs on your friends to persist. It also cleans up the battlefield from things like darkness or magically produced difficult terrain or enemy conjurations. The drawbacks are that the Clockwork Cavalcade is a once per long rest feature, with a cost of 7 sorcery points if you want to use it again before long resting, which is pretty expensive. But overall, I do think the Clockwork Cavalcade is probably going to be worth more than a 5th level spell slot in many situations that a regular adventurer would be hard pressed to deal with, and the sheer versatility of having a 3-in-1 package makes it stronger than the sum of its parts, or at the very least that's what I think. And that about does it for this very basic guide to the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer subclass as presented in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. The Clockwork Soul Sorcerers Origin is really focused on giving the Sorcerer a wide range of supportive and defensive utility tools that are fairly situational at first glance, but with appropriate amounts of tinkering and planning can really excel in surprising fashion. The Clockwork Soul Sorcerer is a pretty engaging subclass that really makes a player think about how you want to approach any given scenario, and it really shows its strength in players who want to build a character that is meticulous in nature and thorough in execution. And as always, I hope that anyone who watches my stuff enjoys what I create as much as I enjoyed creating it in the first place. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye for now.